Today's Keys to the Commonwealth episode is brought to you by Nova Insurance. Are you a business owner or property manager in Kentucky or the surrounding states? Protecting your investment has never been more crucial. Nova Insurance specializes in commercial risk advising for your commercial business, as well as your commercial real estate and rental properties. With personalized service and expert advice, Nova Insurance ensures you are covered from every angle. Call 859-687-2004 today or visit them at novainsuranceGroup.com. Nova Insurance, securing your future one policy at a time. Now, today's episode.
This room looks really good. Again, it reminds me of my counselor.
Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Landry Fields here, and excited for another episode this week with my long-time friend, hopefully long-term, I guess, friend, but longtime friend, Weston Lockhart with SVN Stone and the Develop Lex podcast. So you may have heard his voice on the Develop Lex podcast. Love what they're doing over there with him, Ross, and the guys. Talking about all things, development, especially in this central Kentucky area in that capacity. But wanted to have Weston on for a long time, just kind of talk about real estate, what we're seeing, especially commercial. So he's in the commercial real estate side of things as that goes. And so really just kind of dive into all those things. Those have changed massively, I'm sure, over the last couple of years. And we can talk more about that just as my insurance world has. But without further ado, Weston, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Long time. It's funny. There aren't many podcasts in the city of Lexington.
Yeah.
That's true. I feel like we have run adjacent. Is that the right word? Parallel.
I think
We've run parallel for a very long time. And so it's funny. We had you on Develop Lex a couple months ago.
I feel like sometimes there's like a new podcast like every few months, but then I think people don't realize the commitment it takes type of scenario. And so I feel like a lot of them just have quickly like died off, and it's this idea of like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast and it's going to be awesome. And they get like 5 episodes in and then you never.
I'll give a hot take. I don't even know it's that hot. I think there are way too many podcasts. And this about me. I don't listen to podcasts.
Doesn't listen. That's right. That's right.
Don't tell people, but I don't really listen to podcasts. Here's my thing, and it sounds crazy, but I think I don't have enough focus. I don't know how people listen to podcasts. I listen to some.
Sure.
It's not like I've never listened to a podcast, and obviously go listen to Develop Lex and Keys to the Commonwealth. You should continue to listen to both of those. But I don't know how people do things and listen to podcasts. I feel like somebody's like talking to me, and so either I'm not listening to the podcast at all.
Okay.
Or B, I'm not doing what I was trying to do with the podcast in the background at all. I just don't. I don't have the capacity to do both.
It is hard for the long-term stuff as far as the listening. That's why I think like this more shorter stuff is usually better, so you can kind of get it in maybe in a drive in that capacity. For me, now owning 5 acres, of which 3.5 I have to mow. Yeah, it's like my podcast season of like, I need podcasts. Like, give me the 4-hour Joe Rogan podcast. Like, that's when I'm actually listening to, a whole thing, start to finish or whatnot type of scenario. Because I love music, but it's hard for me to just go with music for 4 hours. I'd rather, I think it's because I've learned, and this is the thing I've been recently on a lot, is just the idea of always learning and that curiosity. And especially as the whole world's changing, AI, whatnot. I think if we can, especially with my kids, if I can kind of help instill just the idea of always being curious in that learning, I think that's why I love a lot of podcasts, because on YouTube, I'm always just kind of like watching something to learn something and figure out like constantly type of scenario.
And I'm an Audible guy. I don't know. I do listen to a lot of books for my mowing.
Oh, Audible, the app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of books, but man, podcasts, I used to we don't have to talk about podcasts this whole time.
It's fine.
This is kind of like a breaking the third or fourth wall, like talking about podcasts while on a podcast. But I listen to a lot of books. I listen to a ton of music.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I just sit in my thoughts and just think. So
I'm not going to open the music door because we could definitely go
yeah.
down some rabbit holes with my background. I don't think most know, but yeah, like my background of playing a lot of live music and being a front man way back in the day. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about who you are. I mean, you're with SVN Stone, so you're in the commercial real estate world, hot and heavy every day in that capacity. But how'd you get there? Where'd you originate from? How'd you get to this area? Lexington?
So I grew up in Lexington. Family was not from Lexington originally. Family was in the restaurant business growing up, or pre-me. My parents moved here from Fort Lauderdale before I was born. My dad was the manager at Columbia Steakhouse. If you're familiar.
There we go. I'd be honest, I think I only went there one time.
Well, apparently it used to be huge back in the day.
Yeah. Was it a chain?
Pre you or was it just I think it was like local, but there were like 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
And so he ran those, was working like 100 hours a week. He moved up here for a different restaurant, but
yeah.
And then my mom was at American. My whole growing up, she worked at American, so I was always around restaurants.
So your weekends were just, I'm at a restaurant, basically.
Yeah, because my dad he started working for a company called Ecolab, and they serviced restaurants. He sold like chemicals, and so a lot of my fondest memories are like he had to take a sales call at 9 on a Saturday, and I was sitting at the house and I was 8, and he would take me to some restaurant downtown, and they'd give me like an appetizer or whatever. I'd sit there, watch him fix dishwashers. So I bring that up because that does kind of play into what I do in real estate now. But I grew up in Lexington, off of Southland Drive behind El Toro. Lived in the same house my whole life, over in on Wabash Drive, and my parents still live there. Never anticipated living in Lexington post high school.
That's such a common story, though, isn't it? Like growing up, especially when we grew up. And we'll get to that point as far as Lexington, but we're talking about growing up in Lexington where like no one went downtown unless you were going to a UK basketball game or just things of that nature. So growing up, you're like, I mean, especially if you had your sights on bigger, grander things, a lot of times you're like, well, it's not here. It's going to be somewhere else.
And just my growing up, my family didn't live here. Like my my parents and my sister lived here, but like every holiday we were not here. Most of my family was in Alabama and Tennessee, Nashville and Birmingham in particular. And I was like, those are cool cities. I'll move there after graduation. That's where I spend all of like my like big events in life. I was really close to my cousins growing up. So I just never imagined living here. Graduated from Lafayette. I played lacrosse in high school, which is not anything exciting. Kentucky as a state, I played travel lacrosse, and we'd go up to Michigan and just get absolutely destroyed by like.
This is probably the early days of lacrosse in Lexington and Kentucky stuff, right?
I guess it was like, this would be actually 10. I graduated high school 10 years ago, so call it 10 to 15 years ago when I was playing. Yeah. We thought we were awesome. Like our travel team thought we were awesome. We went and played this Canadian team, and we would do fine when we would go out of the state. But when we played like a Canadian team, I remember we got beat 18-0. And the kid, there used to be an app called Vine. Do you remember Vine?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like the 7-second videos.
It was like TikTok, but pre-TikTok. He was Vining us as they were beating us. The goalie was literally videotaping. And I was like, I don't think I want to play lacrosse in college and like have to play against these same kids. So I looked at a few schools, like D3 schools, and ended up landing at UK, which I said I never would. While at UK, I took an internship. So I got involved in Young Life, which is a ministry. We don't have to explain all of Young Life, but I got involved in Young Life. My Bible study leader in college was Nathan Dilley, who's now my business partner. When I was a junior, I needed an internship.
His older brother and I went to college together, obviously.
Yes.
Probably knew that.
Michael.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It was such a small world, but I needed an internship. I applied at Alltech to do beer sales because I thought selling beer would be awesome to do that with my life. And I was like, I'm 21. Beer's cool. That'd be cool. So I did that. Applied too late. Texted Dilly as my Bible study leader. Was like, dude, I need an internship. And he's like, why don't you just come hang out with me on Fridays? I was like, I don't really know what that means. I have no idea what you do. I know that you used to be an elementary school teacher. Now you're not, and you really like it. So I'll come hang out with you. That lasted about 2 weeks, and then I was his unpaid intern for about 2 weeks, and then Matt Stone, who's my principal broker now, liked me enough to start paying me. I was working at Baptist Health valeting sick people's cars and also going to school, and I was just working a lot and going to school, and it was just kind of a chaotic schedule. I was also coaching middle school lacrosse at the time, and he was like, how much do I have to pay you for you to like not go valet cars? So I gave him a very nominal amount, and started doing that, and then he told me to get my license, and that was 2017 which is crazy.
Yeah.
My junior year, 2017, got my license in 18, went full time in 2019, doing commercial real estate. So what a time to get in real estate.
That's the same year I opened my own insurance, agency in that capacity. Yeah. So it's like, what a time to open up a business right before a pandemic.
Yeah. But it was so funny because like, obviously COVID was awful in a lot of ways, but for me, like you don't make money in commercial real estate for your first 2 years anyway. And so my life expenses were so low. I was not married yet. I had literally no expenses in my life. And I took this jump and nobody was making money at the time. And so it gave me a really unique opportunity to like learn, while people weren't going to the office. Obviously I missed out on some things, in terms of like networking for my first 2 years. Like I started it my first year and then got to know people in the industry and it was like, oh, you can't do any of that anymore. So
when did you start the pod though?
October of 2020 was Develop Lex. October of 2020 is when, Evan Knowles called me and was like, we should do a podcast.
And then I started mine, I think January, February of 2020. What did you say, 2020?
Yeah.
I think it's 2021.
Yeah, it was like height of COVID. I still remember our first few interviews. We were like, it was like weird.
Or no, maybe it's 2022. I could be wrong. I think it's 2022.
Yeah. It was, that whole year was like, do we wear masks? Are you safe? Am I safe? So I started in real estate in 2019. Technically, COVID hit, so that's another. Obviously, I'm a co-host of the Develop Lex podcast. Me and a guy named Evan Knowles started that in around 2020. He called me. I was on a backpacking trip to Wyoming with 3 other guys driving in a Nissan Murano. We drove 26 hours straight. And he called me. I still remember I was sitting at a gas station and I'd become friends with them. And we had talked about, what would it look like for me to join the Middlesex team. And he's like, we should start a real estate podcast. I think you know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. I think we should, when we kind of riffed on the idea of starting a podcast together. Yeah. Needed one more podcast in the world. So we started one. And that was now almost 5 years ago. So pretty crazy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Nova Insurance, proudly offering Erie Insurance. Entrepreneurs know that success in business isn't just about working hard, it's about making smart decisions. That's why at Nova Insurance, we trust Erie Insurance to protect our clients' businesses. For 100 years, Erie has built a reputation for competitive rates and top-notch service, earning some of the highest industry rankings. We've helped many local business owners find real value through Erie's tailored coverage, ensuring peace of mind while they grow. Celebrate a century of excellence with Erie Insurance and let us show you how we can protect what matters most to your business. Call us at 859-687-2004 or visit www.novainsuranceGroup.com to get started today. And now back to the show. I know that is, especially, so was it through that process you just kind of became more of like, maybe I stick around in Lexington, or where did that change happen as far as just Kentucky and mindset change there?
Great question. It was when I started at SVN my junior year. So even during college, I was a business major. I knew that I wanted to make an impact in some capacity, but I had no idea what that looked like. And I remember I had just a tremendous amount of anxiety my freshman and sophomore year of I want an occupation that makes an impact in some capacity. I don't know what that looks like. I don't want to just work at a desk job. And, I was good at math, but I was like, I don't want to be like a CPA and just crunch numbers all day. I want to be out talking to people and making an impact. And so I feel like the Lord really worked in a lot of different ways, opening just through Young Life. Like my principal broker was on Young Life staff. Everybody at my office essentially has some sort of faith-based background. And that was just a really clear sign to me that I should at least take the internship. And once I did that, kind of like you said, like I grew up in Lexington, but there was a lot of components of Lexington that I just wasn't aware of. And I just hadn't met people outside of my little bubble. Like everybody just grows up in a bubble.
It's the community part that I think once we start getting older and you realize like things look attractive in some ways and moving here, moving this, but if you like don't have this quality of community there, then it can still just be just as more lonely, just in a maybe a slightly cooler place. But, and, you start to get older and you're like, you know what, maybe family's more important in that sense. Maybe community is more important at the end of the day here.
100%.
as far as my quality of life and where my joy and, now I'm freezing my butt off on Saturday mornings with half of Lexington on the soccer fields.
Yeah.
On Saturday mornings type of scenario. But then you're like, I wouldn't, it's those things where like, I wouldn't change this. And those are the memories that'll stick with me the rest of my life in that capacity. The other thing I wanted to pick up on there though is, and I've become more and more convinced of this with two scenarios and two things, which is like, it's so hard a lot of times with opportunity or things that I think could make a separating factor as far as business and entrepreneurship is the idea that a lot of times there's going to be this at least short-term pain or grind or discomfort that I think, deters a lot of people, whether that's, they're jumping into real estate, you're jumping into insurance, you're jumping financial advising, you're jumping into owning a business and starting a business of just like, I get it why a lot of people would be like, that's not me type of scenario. And so it takes a different type of mindset, I think a lot of times for sure, knowing like, for especially commercial insurance in some ways commercial real estate, sometimes, especially in like the first year at least of insurance is like, you're not really going to probably make much.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to sacrifice and play the long game is kind of what you kind of have in that kind of mindset. So,
and to be fair, I was just ignorant.
Oh, I think we all are. Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
you knew a little bit enough to know, like, yeah, but it's like,
but I think for me, like, I'm not like and I think this about you as well. Like, I'm not like, just work harder, hustle harder, like throw all the things in your life away, just go full in on commercial real estate and just like get to the top. I love my job. I consider myself good at my job. We're in a stable place and I love what I do, but I like the thing that was a distinguishing factor to me about the industry that I'm in is I love connecting with people and I love the flexibility that it affords. Like I'm here at 3:30 on a Tuesday and I'm not sitting at my desk. I haven't really been at my desk all day. I probably should be at some point to do some of the things I need to do, but like, I love connecting with people and I love like just the thought that my day looks very different every day. And it's funny. I go to so many. I feel like I go to too many conferences throughout the year, and
there's that many commercial real estate conferences.
Oh my gosh, it's.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. There's like there's like conferences for anything out there.
It's so ridiculous. So I'm involved in like a specific. I do mostly, if not all, retail real estate within commercial shopping centers, quick service restaurants. Development land. And so within that, there's an organization called ICSC that I'm really plugged into. And so I probably go to 6 of those a year, at least. Next week I'll be in New York for one. But you go to those conferences and sometimes I go to those and I'm like, man, I don't think I could do what I'm doing in like New York City or California or what, it's like, I do what I do because I love the community aspect of it. And I like the deal making capacity,
right?
Or I like deal making to some capacity. It's fun, but like, I'm not like a, let's just build this thing. Let's build it into $1 billion company. And you know, let's take over the world. That's just really not. I would rather, my friend Hunter is next door as we record this. Like, I'd rather get to a point that my business is serving a lot of people really well, to where I can go and knock off work on a Thursday afternoon with Hunter and go fly fishing. And that's just kind of, I hope by the time I'm 60, I'm like working with some clients, I own some real estate, and that I'm able to peace out and go fly fishing with Hunter.
There you go. I'm not going to lie, fly fishing is something I've never done, and I don't know if I would have.
You've got the king next door.
I don't know. Like, I've been fishing a few times in my life, but not enough to be like, would I just not enjoy it type of scenario. I feel like a lot of times, especially when it comes to outdoors, I've always kind of categorized people, or maybe it's more so men a lot of times, in some respects, as far as in 3 categories, which is usually you got your hunter fisher type. It's all revolving spending time outdoors, but you got like your hunter fisher men type of idea. You got your I'm camping and hiking kind of idea, and then you got your like golf outside type of, I'm
all 3.
You're all 3. I mean, I feel like, okay, there's some balances like that. Usually one outweighs the other. In that capacity, I'm probably more on the golf side as far as outweighing, but then just got back from being able to go and snowmobile through the Tetons out in Jackson, Wyoming, which is with some guys from my church group. That is just like an awesome experience. So it's like, am I going to be the one that wants to like lug a tent and a cot and hike into a place, then to only set up and like, I tried camping, I guess, tell the story. So I tried camping with my kids again this past year. No, it was like a year ago. This year I skipped the camping part and just went inside to the cabin type of scenario. Yeah. And I had this whole thing. I'm like, I've got at least an air mattress. And it wasn't even that much of a roughing it, like air mattress. And I even had like a heated blanket. Yes, I know. Come on. That I was just like, all right, we're going to be good. Me and my kids, we're going to be out here. I woke up and I could not the next morning. And one, you don't get great sleep anyway. But two, I could not. I was like leaning and like to one side and hobbling just from my back and spine. I'm like, I guess, I'm almost 40 now. Like, this is what this is. And this is the idea and grandeur of like, you're going to go camping with your kids. I'm like, and I grew up going like, church camping trips and trips with like whatever type of stuff and camping stuff. But I'm like, no, I feel like I'm too old for this. And there's other guys I know, they're like, that's all they do is they're always love to like out and camping. Yeah. I'm just like, give me the outdoors, but I'm going to need an actual bed, I guess is where I'm going. Maybe I need a camper itself. That would maybe be a little bit better.
I grew up with a camper. So my family had a pop-up camper.
Okay.
And that was a great introduction.
It doesn't even have to be overly nice, but as long as I have an actual mattress, I think I'd have a much better time.
There was air conditioning when you needed it. Now I love tent camping, and that's what I do now.
I can get over the AC aspect. I've been
the only thing I care about is the fire. The nighttime fire is.
Does it have to have one, or just how it's done?
You have to have one to enjoy camping.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that's a non-negotiable.
Yes, I agree.
If we're not going to have a fire that night, I'll leave it.
That's like,
I see bourbon behind you as we're talking. I love the thought of drinking some Bullet and sitting around a fire. Like that's my whole. Is
Bullet your go-to
around a fire? Yeah,
around a fire. Yeah, so, I agree. You have to have a campfire. So my joke is always like, if I'm in a hot tub and then sometimes like you've been in it too long and then the bubbles stop happening, I'm like, turn it back on. Now we're just in a bath. And this is weird. So
exactly.
No.
That's what I mean. I think there's a nostalgia aspect to it as well, but that's why I like camping. I don't even know how we got there, but
I love it. And there's so many good places around Kentucky too. So that's why growing up here, I've opened my eyes to a lot more of what we have to offer in that capacity. But I mean, back to the real estate side of things, and commercial real estate especially, I mean, there's been you would know better than me, but in some ways there's been a large shift on like, and maybe that's the cool part about commercial real estate as far as how it can morph into things. Like this building was this, but now we see a different kind of picture and concept of it, and we're going to redo the building into becoming this, and now it's maybe like a habitational place versus an office, or it used to be more flex space has now been, I don't know, different things like that. And that's, I think, always the cool part about real estate is just someone sees a picture that no one else has or a vision or something like that, and then kind of turn it into something as well. So, I mean, how's that changed, especially in the last couple of years with your specific kind of niches that you're in? Yeah.
I'm going to put the SVN hat on. Yep. I'll put the Developlex hat on if we need it. But real estate, and I don't think this is my definition, it's definitely not my definition, is trying to figure out the highest and best use for the property. And so I think it's our responsibility to take a property or a piece of land and determine, is this the best use for this land as things have changed. So I work specifically today in retail real estate. So that's a little bit ambiguous. People are like, are you selling? Like, are you working in a store? What does that mean? Mostly shopping centers. We work on behalf of like some corporate clients. So Goodwill, Popeyes, Five Guys, Huck's gas station, people like that. We essentially are consultants. We do all of their site selection for new locations. We'll do a lot of their lease renegotiations.
Okay.
We're helping them expand, stabilize, optimize their businesses on the site selection front of things. We do a lot of like shopping center sales. We sell a lot of Dollar Generals, single tenant, like investment sales. So that's kind of the definition of retail real estate. How it's changed.
So it becomes a lot more clientele sometimes out and more coming in from larger markets, finding you more for the local market type
organically. Yeah, that's how it's shifted. We took on Popeyes as a client in 2020. It was 2020 because I still remember our first market tour. It's like masks. That's kind of crazy. But through that, like you kind of build out similar structures of how to work with a client well, and then word gets out and, somebody will jump from being the real estate manager for Popeyes to being the real estate manager for Five Guys, and they still want to use you in Kentucky. And so it kind of like that side of things kind of snowballs on site selection, because you're often working with very similar people looking for very similar site requirements. You kind of get what somebody's looking for. And so I know immediately people can send me a site and I can tell you if the Popeyes franchisees that we work with are going to be interested in the site or not. Even if it looks like you might drive down the street and see an old Burger King and be like, that'd be a great Popeyes. Well, sometimes, there's a lot of things that go into that. And so I think that people like to hire us because we can speak fairly objectively without having to waste their time of like getting 100 sites into them.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of it. And then, the investment sales, we help landlords, sellers, buyers with their investment real estate. So people buy shopping centers as a actual real estate investment, same way as people buy houses and collect a rent check from, a tenant. People like me and you buy shopping centers.
Not me yet.
For
maybe one day. I don't know.
For larger sums of money. Yeah. I mean, I'm not just to be clear, I'm not an owner of a bunch of shopping centers, but, people buy shopping centers as an investment. I think that people don't, that's where like, I feel like, when we speak to classes or like speaking to people entering the industry or not even in the industry, they don't understand that like there's an individual most likely, REITs and large institutions own some, but like a lot of real estate is privately held by, John Smith and his wife, and they just bought it years ago because they had a laundromat. And they bought the whole center as an investment, and then they moved the laundromat out, and now they just collect a rent check every month from 6 tenants. And it's just a cool, diverse asset.
I think this can be a quick answer. Is this whole idea of the silver tsunami that we've heard about a lot of business owner scenarios or people that own businesses, is that still true, or is that also carry over and true in more of a commercial real estate perspective as well, or is that being more passed down a lot easier to next generation than, a lot of times second generation maybe doesn't want to be a part of the family business?
Fair question. I would say you don't see, we're seeing that from the business side of things. We actually have a business brokerage in house at SVN. I do zero business brokerage, but Justin Ryder and Harrison Lane in my office do. And so we're seeing the silver tsunami thing very much so.
But in the owning real estate?
No, not as much, because people are just, people are disposing of those assets in a pretty normal way. Or leasing, or, it's a lot harder it's a lot easier to pass down a piece of real estate than a business.
That's what my assumption was. I wasn't sure.
It's a great question. And I'm sure there's probably something to be said about a large majority or a large subset of people that bought real estate at one time that maybe their kids don't want it or something like that. And we see that, and we help people like that, but not to the level of business brokerage. Business brokerage right now is on fire.
Yeah, I can see that. And in some ways, it's almost tempting sometimes to be like, oh man, what if I bought this business or this business? And then you start like listening to Hormozy or some of these guys, and they've struggled with that same thing, like the shiny object syndrome in that capacity, and realizing most of the people out there, it wasn't because they did, a bunch of different types of businesses and different things. It's like maybe there's, usually you have a couple different variations of different businesses in some capacity, or real estate on the side. We're not talking about that, but just like you're trying to go too broad. It just a lot of times you can't go very far. And that the whole riches and the niches type of idea, or the niche aspect of like just digging out and going further. And so Hormozy was actually talking about this in a fantastic podcast I listened to the other day, where he was talking about a lot of times, especially in business world, it takes a lifetime of experience and just going through it, right? And so you can either do that yourself, go through the full experience of your lifetime learning it, or if you're trying to get there faster, you have to basically hire and get the people who have had those experiences or gain that knowledge to kind of buy that, that lifetime experience in that capacity. And that a lot of times, you've like, I've figured out 40%, like you're playing our old school 64 Donkey Kong or Super Nintendo Donkey Kong scenario. I'm teaching my son how to play it right now, and it's awesome. But like, you go through the first like 4 levels, you know how to do it, you're doing it well, and you're like, well, I'm going to start a different game, and it's like, or it basically kind of elevates it to that. Like if you're always restarting, you always know how to do those first 4 levels really quickly. But it's like, even if it's a different business, but then you've still never gone and done the additional levels at 60%, 80% type of scenario. And so a lot of times you always are still kind of just recycling the same thing. So kind of a tangent there.
Yeah, I mean, it's accurate. But and I think that a lot of people see, and there's cases that this isn't the case, but you really are buying a job when you buy a business. Like that's what Steve Pulliam from my office, who started, it used to be called the Pulliam Company. They've rebranded to Bluegrass Business Advisors. Steve doesn't come into the office as much.
Yeah. I heard his episode on the SPA. Yeah. In your podcast, and it was great.
Yeah.
I think while I was mowing.
Yeah.
By the way. Yeah. I actually know that.
So Bluegrass Business Advisors is now the name, but I mean, I think that, especially through things like podcasts, it's been maybe promoted that you could just buy up a bunch of like random ancillary businesses and like hire somebody to replace you pretty quickly. And while that can be true, it's like you are in theory with most businesses buying a job. Yeah. Like owners' earnings are in your underwriting of a business. And why does the owner get paid? Probably because they're in whatever business it is most days. Sure. Actually working. And if somebody doesn't come into work that day, they will probably be doing that job because that's the job of a business owner. So can you buy like 6 businesses at the same time and effectively run them? Probably not.
Probably just need to have a whole pod on what EBITDA means and how to do EBITDA as far as that goes. I mean, I say that because, my goal is not buying other businesses, but one of the goals as we set the foundations for a lot of stuff here at Nova Insurance and preparing for growth in that capacity is that there are, in the same sense, a lot of insurance agency businesses that are, in essence, coming for sale, going to be in the near future, next 10 years coming for sale. And so putting ourselves in a position to kind of really capitalize on that. But again, you're just buying another job. And there's never, even if it's the best looking business, there's always still going to be a giant headache of sorts that comes with that, and new people and so forth. So I realized that, and in that capacity. Switching topics here, though, I think more just from the podcast hat scenario there, if you want to switch hats back again in capacities. There you go. But the development in the central Kentucky area since growing up and so forth, it's just been unbelievable, in my opinion, and made Lexington something that's just extraordinarily special to me, I think to you as well. I mean, we can speak to just, downtown and the new park that's opening up, I believe, this fall-ish or end of summer. Yeah. That's kind of crazy. My kids, we drove by and saw the 3-story slide there downtown.
Me and Ross almost went down it one day. We broke, don't tell them, but we broke in, and Ross was like, actually thinking about it. I was like, dude, I don't know. That thing might not be a symbol, but it is a tall, we just say it is a tall, steep slide. Yeah. I am very curious.
I mean, I'll be going down it eventually.
The first person to go down it, they might want to put a mattress.
I'm going to look at you a little weird going, if you're there without kids, just trying to go down it yourself. But I got kids as an excuse. But I mean, you should take the fact that I'm a big, music guy. I think you're, love music as well. But just the fact that we've always just had Rupp or, the small Manchester. And back when, I can't remember, there used to be a real small place that closed when I was in college down there.
Downtown. Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
It's not Tootsie's, but it was something kind of like a name like that. But that's all we've really ever had as a borough. But like, I'm so excited for this. It's roughly 4.5 to 5,000 person amphitheater that I don't know if a lot of people know that's really going in. But they've got some big booking type of people behind it. So I mean, we should be getting some really sweet not middle of the road, but medium size. They're going to draw more of a 5,000 person crowd rather than a 15,000 person crowd type of scenario. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. And then you take along all the food stuff that's happened. We got the new development right there on the corner by Triangle Park. We just obviously sat in that meeting together with a lot of what's going on there. And you all may have, I think, had a gathering with them. And then you got some of that stuff over there with the Commons happening, Manchester, that whole area, was just an abandoned site, obviously growing up. So it's just so exciting to kind of see what's happening. And, the fact that our little town is really kind of becoming such a special place, especially that you don't have all the interstate just going through the middle of it and so forth like that.
I'm convinced that is the reason that Develop Lex does well.
The timeliness of the fact that everything
more
there's
so,
so much going on.
I think people just care a lot what's happening in their city, even if you lived in not Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
People have a strong tie to the community that they live in. And so you're always curious what's going on down the street. But in Lexington in particular, it's funny. I was thinking, you started talking about Lexington, and I was like, man, I don't want to talk about the urban service boundary again because we talk about it on every podcast.
Yeah,
but then I was like, wait, this isn't my podcast. People on this one.
We've talked about it a little bit, but I mean, not enough to that you can definitely beat that drum again.
Well, no, I'm not going to. But what I will say is that Lexington, for things that it doesn't have going for it, such as the ability to grow out, it does have the ability to really thoughtfully curate a very cool downtown and very cool pockets, because we are quite literally forced to do infill redevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that somebody, kind of back to the theme earlier, like somebody does have to think through what is the highest and best use for this property, because it is going to be a lot of money to redevelop it. And I can't just take a chance here. Like, there has to be a lot of city buy-in. That stuff is hard, and it makes Lexington a high barrier to entry market for developers. But what it does have is that most of our developments, in opposition to some of our competitive cities, call it a Nashville or Indy, or there's just not as much thought that has to be put into developments in those cities as there is Lexington. So both good and bad there.
I think you have to give the city of Lexington the leadership. I'm sure people can disagree, or
and they
in different capacities for sure. Yeah. But I think as a whole, I think probably we can all agree in many ways that we all are pretty happy with how things have developed downtown, or been adjusted, or re-infilled type of scenario, or remodeled, whatever type of scenario. And so that it has become something that I think a lot of people can be kind of like, yeah, this is pretty.
It's
pretty
a great
awesome
city to live in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, we can bicker about the urban service boundary and like horse farm preservation and, agendas behind all of the things, all we want. And that's like the job of city officials. That's really not my job on development. Right. I just like kind of give people a mic to do it. But, what we can't be argued is that we live in a really good city. Like, I was just at a conference in Texas last week with offices from all across the country. Lexington, for the size that it is, punches way above its weight class, and way above its weight class. And we are in a safe 15-minute, call it 30 when you drive to Hamburg, but we are in a safe, like, there's stuff to do. There's people that are excited about the city. There's community investment. There's people that are really trying to take projects off the ground. Like, we live in a really good city. We're nitpicking on a lot of the things that we talk about. Yeah. But yeah, for better or for worse, we live in a really good city.
Yeah, I love it. And restaurant vibe has taken off over the last many years too. And I'm sure jump into a lot of those conversations too. But is there anything on the horizon outside of that park as we kind of wrap this up, as far as any of the development stuff you're kind of looking forward to that you want to kind of give a shout out in that capacity?
I would say some of the developments, we have several Publix coming online right now, and
which everybody tells me their sub sandwiches are great. I have not had. Shockingly, I've never had them. Just saw a Publix that opened up in Florida that was supposed to have a whole burrito bar. So I'm hoping maybe some of them here, maybe you knew or
don't know about that.
That maybe they're going to do that as well. Apparently, it's not extra for guacamole. It's just load the thing up. But
love that. They got the Qdoba.
So we'll see.
There's like a grocery store war thing going on between Kroger and Publix right now.
That's true.
What I'll tell you about a pub sub is they're also I'm a value guy. I just love value. A lot of my favorite restaurants are because they're just adequately priced. Publix. Groceries are a little bit more expensive, but the pub sales are awesome.
Okay.
So I'm excited for that.
Right here.
I think just having more competition in a market is good, generally speaking, in terms of retail. So I'm excited for that. Not because I love Publix so much, although I do like it, but I'm like I don't even do the grocery shopping in my house, so I can't even say that it's going to impact my life that much. The Commons is one that's coming online.
I think that's the one most people don't know about as much.
Yeah.
If you want to do a quick 30-second on what that really is, or it's over there by the cemetery ish.
Yeah, West Main Street as it goes into Leestown Road. I mean, that is a part of Lexington that is very much understated in terms of its value.
It's kind of an extension over from Manchester of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, you can walk. You'll be able to, if you live in Meadowthorpe. Think about this: if you live in Meadowthorpe, you will be able to walk to the Commons, which is a massive development that's also going to have an incredible music venue. They just signed Pickleball Kingdom, I think, which is going to have like 40 pickleball courts.
Distillery, I think. They're axe throwing.
Yeah, Pardee Distillery, I think is the name.
Pardee one.
I mean, there's just going to be a ton of stuff there. And so you'll be able to walk there to, what am I thinking? Manchester Street. And you are also right by Townley, which has a new First Watch, has Drake's, has Starbucks, like it has Kroger. Yeah. You can do all the things.
Is that what that's called? No.
Townley Center. Yeah. Dennis Anderson's development there.
On Leestown there. Because I used to live off Leestown in the early days back when you were in college, and like, I don't think we have ever really remembered if it was called anything in that whole area. And then it blew up after I moved away from it.
Yeah, it's boomed. And so like that's a part of Lexington that if I were like looking to buy a house, which I'm a Southland guy through and through, but that is a part of Lexington that I would be really excited about. Yeah. For most people, the Commons in particular, that development's awesome. I mean, we just have some really cool projects and we have some really thoughtful developers I'm not going to name them all because I'm going to lose somebody off, but I love the Warehouse Block, love Chad Walker, love North Lime, love Chad Needham. Like obviously Darren Turner. There's so many developments going in Lexington that are just so thoughtful and are infill projects that are close to people's homes that you can go and get a cup of coffee or a donut or dinner or go see a live show I think that's just something that unique that we have in our city. So I'd be remiss to like mention all the developments that
and again, back to the music thing, the ability to go see concerts there was no ability to do so growing up. Yeah. And again, unless it was at Rupp for the most part. So me being a music guy, I'm hoping to get more and more of like the bands I would traditionally have to go drive over to Cincinnati or Louisville at some of those smaller, but not, venues that'll hold 1,000 people or 2,000. So
this venue at the Commons, you should maybe check that out.
What's kind of maybe capacity ish on that?
I don't remember the capacity, but I know that it is going to be a game changer for the music scene in Lexington.
Bigger than Manchester.
What I'm told. It's big. It's in that niche spot that is smaller than Rupp, but bigger than Manchester.
But probably smaller than the outdoor.
Correct.
So which is a lot more.
But it will be all indoor so that you could actually have all year round. So I'm told I don't understand like music venues, but I'm told that is going to be an absolute game changer. I'm just going to give a shout out that
if anybody likes music like I do, go check out my boys, The Strike. And it's like a reincarnation of like 80s rock pop. It's so good. And I saw them live in Nashville last year. First time they've been on the East Coast. So anyway, maybe I can get them here one day. Actually, they're Mormon band. So now that we've got Mark Pope, maybe I can somehow figure out how to get them in here in Lexington. I might be the only one at the concert, but it is saxophonist, rock in it, and
Mark
everything.
Pope, Colin Chandler.
Yeah. They got saxophonists playing sax. I mean, it's awesome. Anyway,
I love it.
But no, I appreciate your time, Weston, and it's such an exciting time, especially this year. So much of it's coming together and culminating over the next kind of 12 months, starting this summer, as far as a lot of this stuff that we've been seeing and watching, and especially probably you more than most. So appreciate your time. Yeah. If there's any way somebody wants to contact you, what's the best way to do so if that is the case?
Yeah, you can look my name up on Google. It comes up with so many property listings that all have my cell phone number all over them.
There you go.
As we mentioned a couple of times, I've a podcast / newsletter /
more of a LinkedIn guy, not necessarily social media, just so everybody knows.
I don't have an Instagram or a Facebook. That will disappoint people. Ross, my counterpart at DevelopLex, which shout out Ross. He's been on the podcast, but he is like the heartbeat of DevelopLex at this point. Me and Evan started it, but me and Ross are now carrying it, and he puts in so much work. But Ross does not like that I don't have an Instagram, but I don't have an Instagram.
That's right.
So Develop Lex Pod on Instagram is where you can find us, and Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. We're on all that. So
I appreciate it.
That's the best way to reach me.
Love it. Appreciate you coming over to the show, and we will see everybody here in a couple of weeks for the next episode of the Keys to Commonwealth podcast. Appreciate it, Weston.
Yeah, absolutely. Easy enough.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.